Politics has always been a bit of a difficult subject to tackle, especially in relation to the things that politicians say. In some ways, talking is the most important skill they have, debating in the halls of power, negotiating with different pressure groups, and making speeches to the populace. It's extremely difficult to get anywhere in politics without being a good speaker, since you have to be able to convince the voters to pick you when the elections come around. But then that often leads to a problem. What do we do about the truthfulness of politicians? One man thinks he has the answer. His name is Alan Sugar. He's the man who created the electronics company named Amstrad, became a multi-millionaire and got made a baron for it, though most of the UK probably knows him for being the host of The Apprentice. Thankfully, unlike some people, he has no plans to go into politics himself. Instead, he said that it should be a crime for politicians to lie to the populace. Could this ever happen? Possibly, but I'm not here to talk about that, but to discuss whether the idea itself has merit and whether there are any major issues with it. On a gut emotional level, the concept is really appealing, since it reflects the general distrust that people have of politics. Decisions made by other people have a knock-on effect on our lives, and the decisions made by politicians have the potential to be felt by everyone. This unease often manifests as disaffection, since it can feel as if we're not being listened to. So the idea that there can be checks and balances in place to deal with rogue politicians is a comforting one. Moreover, if a politician has to be honest, then it would probably lead to more cooperation between parties, and the voting public would be able to make better decisions on who they wish to vote for, or how to vote in the event of a referendum. On a conceptual level, it makes a lot of sense. If that wasn't enough, we're currently living in a time of great upheaval, and emotions are running high amongst different sets of people with very different viewpoints. Issues such as Brexit, the NHS, the monarchy, foreign policy and warfare are hot-button topics at the best of times. The idea that we could be misled into supporting activities that may be distasteful, wasteful or illegal is frightening, and allegations constantly turn up in the newspapers, depending on what ideals and politics the paper's owners subscribe to. If there were to be any time for this kind of legislation to be passed, now would be a good time to do it, especially given the spectre of civil unrest that often hangs over these troubled times. The biggest issue with the idea though, and the big reason why it would be unfeasible, is that it would be hard to pin down what would count as truth. The closest thing we have to it is the crime of perjury, where false statements made under oath are illegal if they have the potential to affect the outcome of a trial. Since promises made by politicians have the potential to help get them elected or gain donations, it could be possible to extend perjury to include them. The problem is that statements that concern interpretation of facts cannot be perjury, and that it's only perjury if the person knowingly intends to mislead. Together, these two things would make it near impossible to convict anyone, since any statement made could be interpreted in many different ways, and may be left purposefully vague to protect the person in question. Even if a politician was brought to court, it would be up to the prosecutors to prove that the statement was unambiguous in its meaning, that it wasn't able to be interpreted in any other way, and that the politician had the intention to mislead the audience that listened to it. Making that even more difficult is that the jury would have to make a decision based solely on the cases given by the prosecution and the defence, which is hard enough for people to do now without having politics come into it. What may be considered damning to one individual may be harmless to another, to the point where it would be near impossible for the jury to come to a unanimous verdict. In the end, it may be a nice idea to make it illegal for politicians to lie, but there's probably no way to actually fairly enforce it. In the end, the goal may be to make people more engaged in politics, to teach them how to weigh up the words of others, and to get people to put their own biases to one side so that they can make reasonable decisions. Whether or not that goal is possible is another question entirely, and I don't really have the time, knowledge or inclination to answer that. But what do you think about this contentious issue? Please leave a comment below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it with someone you know. If you want to see more of these videos, you can click the subscribe button. I'm Joseph, and this was my thoughts on legislating the truth. I'll speak to you soon.